Hello. Today's video is about 5 essentials when dealing with trauma. I recently created a post about this, which you guys shared a lot, and I thought it's a good idea to expand on all that, especially since in Lebanon right now, a lot of friends are telling me about all the trauma that they're going through. I have friends that are having lots of flashbacks, they're not being able to sleep. I have friends that have lost eyes, ears, and almost all my friends have had severe damage to their homes, and that's a lot of trauma to go through. And in my clinic, I work with a lot of trauma patients, and one thing I find is very useful when dealing with trauma is understanding what happens at the level of the brain so that you can have the right tools to deal with that when it's happening. So when it comes to trauma, it really is like a glitch in the brain. In the brain, there's the emotional brain that sits underneath the rational brain. And in trauma, what happens is that because of an incomplete response of feeling like you are saving yourself in that traumatic event, that never happened, that response of feeling safe and saved, it gets stuck in the emotional brain. And so the rational brain can't come in and help in that moment. It's literally a disconnect between the emotional and the rational brain. So this manifests as symptoms like flashbacks, inability to describe events, inability to describe events coherently, not being able to concentrate, not being able to engage in your life and in the surroundings, literally withdrawing from life, and also having a nervous system hypersensitivity so that even the smallest non-threatening triggers can set off a panic attack. So these are 5 essentials for you to be able to deal with trauma as you start to recognize your brain glitch and be able to really come in that moment and have some strong tools to help yourself resolve that response that wasn't resolved back when the traumatic event happened. So the first one is find community. A lot of people think that trauma, the way to deal with trauma is a lot of therapy, and it is. It's definitely a lot of therapy, but also the most protective risk factor against trauma is community. So finding community allows a person to accelerate the healing from trauma, and that's scientifically proven. The reason for that is because when you see other people going through the same things that you are going through, and when you hear other people's journey, and when you hear other people's pain, and hopefully when you start to see other people healing, that also helps you to do the same for yourself. And that provides a strong sense of community and support for you while going through that journey. The second point is telling your story. This is really important. So this is where the neuroscience comes along. In trauma, what happens is because the emotional brain and the rational brain disconnect, it becomes difficult to be able to form a coherent story about the traumatic events. In fact, there's 2 awareness systems in the brain. They're almost completely separate, but they work together. So the first system of awareness is awareness of time, that longitudinal awareness that allows you to tell your story about yourself. The second system of awareness is present moment awareness. So being able to really plug into what you're experiencing right now in this moment. What happens in trauma is that it causes a dysfunction in these 2 systems of the brain, so that when there's a dysfunction in the time-telling system of awareness, the events are remembered as fragments, flashbacks. And when there's a dysfunction in the present moment system of awareness, there's a dysfunction in being able to tell if the events are happening in the past or right now. And that's why people, when they experience triggers, the emotional response that comes out is as if these events are happening right now. And so when it comes to healing trauma, the key word is reintegration. And so telling your story allows those fragments and that inability to incorporate those fragments in the present moment without feeling like it's happening again. Telling your story allows those fragments to be reintegrated into the larger story of yourself and to be seen as events that happened in the past rather than events that are happening right now because the emotional brain is on. The third point is grounding, and if you're starting to understand how trauma works in the brain, you probably figured out why grounding works. So grounding is about really anchoring in the present moment because trauma hypersensitizes the nervous system. And when that happens, the smallest trigger can set off the largest alarm because the emotional brain is what's dominant in trauma. So grounding, you can do that by grounding in the senses, especially during an alarm. So you can look around you, you can describe the colors, you can describe the sounds, you can describe the smells, you can label yellow, green, tree, smile, person, mother, son. You can label to ground yourself in the present moment. And one really powerful tool is to do active breathing, which I'll make another video about that after this one. So all of that goes into that reintegration for healing so that you develop a stronger sense of present moment awareness, which is what became dysfunctional at the time of the trauma. And grounding can help you with that. The fourth point is unstacking. What happens with trauma is every time you are triggered, it causes a stack or a load on your nervous system. So let's take the example of people in Lebanon right now. People in Lebanon going through the streets, seeing all the glass and all the broken buildings, first stack. Going through the streets, seeing people angry and sad and helping each other out and despondent, second stack. Seeing the protests and the news on TV, third stack. Seeing the response of the government and just the anger at that response, fourth stack. Coming back home, your family is despondent, your family feels like there's no hope, fifth stack. So, and it continues one stack over the other. And it's really important to unstack because unstacking offloads the nervous system. In trauma, there's a lot of guilt, shame, and self-blame. And so it's really hard to do unstacking because unstacking requires you to do things that feel more like positive interventions. And when you are experiencing so much negativity, so much guilt, shame, and self-blame about what's going on, it's really hard to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to meditate, which is a really important way of unstacking. Or I'm going to imagine the best possible outcomes of things, which is another really important way of unstacking. And perhaps one of the most important things is keeping your body moving. So doing yoga, exercising, running, just keeping your body moving. And this is probably one of the most difficult ones for you to do right now, is allow yourself, give yourself permission to contemplate things like strength. When's the last time you felt strong? Put yourself there again. Think about it. Think about the events that happened, what you were seeing, what you were hearing, why you felt that way, who was with you. Allow yourself to contemplate hope. Allow yourself to contemplate about the love that you have in your life, because you have it and you're allowed to contemplate it. And allow yourself to contemplate about success. What would success look like for you? Even if you don't feel it in that moment, just allowing yourself to contemplate that causes unstacking and offloading of the nervous system. And the more you can offload, the more you're able to navigate the traumatic events you're going through without a lot of turbulence. And the last point is engaging. Number 5 is engaging. So engaging is about really grounding in everything that's happening around you. So trauma clouds the ability to stay present, and we've demonstrated why. But allowing yourself to enjoy the small things in your life. For example, a sunset, your baby's smile, your lover's embrace, your dog's excitement, your cat purring, your favorite food. So engaging with your surroundings and with the people around you helps you to solve the emotional problem that's happening in trauma, because trauma is a brain glitch. It's an emotional problem. So the guilt and self-blame and shame that comes with trauma, it's really hard to rationalize your way out of that, especially with things that are happening in Lebanon right now. How do you rationalize your way out of that? So because trauma is an emotional problem, it requires an emotional solution, and engaging is that emotional solution. When you're able to look at your baby and enjoy their smile, enjoy their face, that allows you to engage in a way that evokes a positive emotional response, and that also offloads the nervous system. So those are 5 essentials to dealing with trauma. Find community, tell your story, ground, unstack, and engage. I hope you find them helpful, and if you ever have any questions about any of this, feel free to talk to me. I talk with you guys all the time, and I absolutely love it. It's why I do what I do. Take care.